And welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today we've got another video for you for Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. Today we're going to be specifically looking at Territory War Omicrons. This is another video in our series on high priority targets where we tell you guys things that you really want to focus and target on for your roster. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. Alright, so we're going to be looking at a top 10? Really 13 characters here, and what we think are going to be some of the best, worst, and just kind of middle ground Omicrons that we've got here for Territory Wars. Now, we obviously all know that GAC is the king and reigns supreme when it comes to Omicrons. And TB might be getting some love here since they had the new release of Rise of the Empire. But TW is still very important, especially at the upper end of things. And a lot of these Omicrons are very much worth investing in if you are a very competitive guild when it comes to Territory War. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into our first character here. Our first one we have is Mara Jade. Mara Jade is absolutely one of the great Territory War Omicrons that exist. She is amazing. Not only is she an amazing character in general, but man, does her Omicron absolutely slap. So let's go ahead and take a look at it real quick. It says, at the start of the battle, if the enemy leader is not a galactic legend, now that is a key caveat right there, they lose 100% protection, 50% max protection, and Mara Jade gains 100% turn meter. That's just insane. Just insane. Pretty much guarantees that she goes first, unless there's a GL there. And it basically completely neuters gas, is in other words what happens here. Whenever an enemy unit is defeated, inflict vulnerable for one turn on a random enemy, which can't be prevented, and allies gain 20% max protection. Just an absolutely beast of an Omicron, folks. If you've got her and you've got this team, particularly with Star Killer in mind, you absolutely want to invest in this one. This is one that I think is absolutely a top 5 for me. Definitely cannot go wrong with putting this on her. I personally do not have it simply because we are not a super competitive TW guild, so I tend to save most of mine for GAC. Next up, we have Fulcrum, Ahsoka Tano Fulcrum. This is probably my number 1, maybe 2 Omicron on my list here. And you'll notice, folks, this list is out of order. I don't like to do ordered lists. But this one is amazing. Unfortunately, I do not have Fulcrum all the way up and ready to roll. But this is pretty much the Wampa of the GAC realm. If you are a big GAC fan and you use a lot of the Omicrons on GAC, this basically takes Ahsoka Tano Fulcrum and turns her into Wampa. She will solo a ridiculous number of teams that are out there, everyone. Absolutely amazing. I'm not going to show you the kit and get into the details of it. One, because I don't have the character up. But two, you really don't need to know anything other than it makes her Wampa. If you know anything about Wampa, you know what she does. She can solo a team because of her Omicron. Absolutely amazing, and somebody that you want to look into. Alright, let's take a look at our next one here. My mouse is giving me some issues here for some reason. Okay. Boba Fett, Scion of Django. Another really good Territory War Omicron. I would not necessarily say that this is an A category level Omicron. It makes him significantly better, and he definitely is significantly better in Territory War. He is not that very good outside of Territory War. And I honestly, folks, unless you've got a just plentiful amount of bounty hunters and you don't have Jabba and you don't have some of the better leads, like for instance, I use Aura Singh bounty hunter lead and use them on offense in TW. If you really have a large number of bounty hunters, you don't have Jabba, then maybe consider investing in this. Personally, I would not. I know for me, I do technically have 2 bounty hunter teams, but between some of the scoundrel teams that I put them in, and the fact that I am going to be going for Jabba as well, he's just not worth it in my opinion, folks. I know that it makes him better. It makes him a far more viable character, but it's just not very good. Him as a character, he's just not very good. You can see I actually don't even have him activated. He is the one conquest character I do not have activated, and I am in absolutely no hurry to get him activated because he's just not very good. Is the Omicron good? Yes, but the character itself is so bad that the Omicron is not really worth it, in my opinion, folks. Move along, to quote our wonderful Stormtrooper. Move along. Okay, Captain Phasma. Unlike Sign of Django, Captain Phasma's is absolutely worthwhile. And she, because of this Omicron, is worthwhile in terms of investing in. Sign of Django is kind of the flip side. His Omicron makes him much, much better, but even with that, it's not worth investing in my opinion. Versus Phasma is absolutely not worth investing in without the Omicron, unless you're getting Slicker. But if you do have the Omicron, she's absolutely worth it. It makes her incredible, and it makes you have an incredible team to work with. We're going to go ahead and look at the details on this one. Like I said, I tend to look at the details of ones that are very, very good and or a little bit more complicated. So while in Territory Wars, additional 10% chance to call a random ally to assist. If you don't know anything about the Zeta, it does call a lot of allies to assist. And a random ally to assist. Captain Phasma has 100 speed. That's the big one, folks. Whenever a First Order ally attacks out of turn, First Order allies recover 5% health and protection. So not only is she extremely fast, but also she calls more people to attack out of turn, and they become much, 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 much beefier because of it. Whenever a First Order ally gains advantage, they also gain 10% offense stacking for the rest of the battle, and all First Order allies gain 7.5% turn meter. So not only do they become difficult to kill because of the health and protection regen, they're very fast because of Phasma. They attack out of turn a lot. They also have stacking offense, so they're going to hit hard, and they have a way to gain turn meter on top of it. This Omicron just takes her, and in particular leftover First Order characters, up to an absolute A tier in TW. Not quite S tier, but A tier, I would say, is definitively a good level for them. Is it worth investing in? I think it is. This would probably be in my top 5, if I'm being honest with you. Mara Jade's is in the top 5. Fulcrum's is absolutely in the top 5, possibly the number 1. And then Phasma's also would be a top 5 for me as well. So let's go ahead and move into our next... Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped one. Mace Windu. I forgot we were on number 4, not number 5. Mace Windu. Also, pretty good Territory War Omicron. Would I recommend this? Unless you're Rambam, probably not. If you're Rambam, you probably already had this 10 years ago, but it's not bad. It's certainly not to the point of like Scion. Well, again, Scion of Django isn't bad either. It's just his character's not good. Mace Windu, however, is not a bad character. But let's take a look at this, because it's not a bad Omicron. I just personally wouldn't put it in the top tier for me. At the start of each other light side ally's turn, random enemy, excluding Galactic Legends, is inflicted with speed down for 1 turn and Shatterpoint, which can't be evaded or resisted. When an ally damages an enemy with Shatterpoint, all allies gain 5% turn meter. You're not really gaining any new things. The Shatterpoint already exists. It's already there. That hasn't changed. The big thing basically is that your allies are able to get 5% turn meter anytime that you're damaging somebody with Shatterpoint. So it's just adding a little way for you to gain some turn meter. But here's the catch, folks. Mace Windu is usually going to be on either a JMK team, or probably B, a Padme team in TW. Those two teams, you don't gain turn meter. So even though it's not a bad Omicron, the circumstances just really, really neuter it. Unless you're running him under a JML, which I don't recommend because you already have a super strong tank with JML, you really aren't gaining very much benefit from this at all, in my opinion. I mean, really, it's just the speed down for 1 turn, and that's about it. So, again, good character. It's not a bad Omicron. It's just, situationally speaking, it's a bad situation for it, unfortunately. Okay, let's look at our second list here. We've got Sidious. Sidious has a decent Omicron, but again, it's kind of a similar situation to Mace in that it's not bad, but situationally speaking, you're not really going to benefit from it very much. So it says, if all allies are Sith at the start of battle, other Sith allies gain max health equal to half of Darth Sidious's potency until the first time he's defeated. When Darth Sidious uses demoralizing blows, the cooldown of the ability is reduced by 1 for each other Sith ally, and Darth Sidious gains 50 speeds for 4 turns. So there's kind of 2 levels to this Omicron. The main one that I'm going to talk about first, that actually is pretty beneficial, is the bottom part. When Darth Sidious uses demoralizing blows, the cooldown of the ability is reduced by 1 for each other Sith ally, and Darth Sidious gains 50 speed for 4 turns. That actually is very, very good, and is very, very helpful, and makes Sidious much, much better. Does it change the game? No. It just makes him much, much more effective. Now, the part that would, in my opinion, change the game is the top part. There's an asterisk to this, though. If all allies are Sith at the start of battle, other Sith allies gain max health equal to half of Darth Sidious's potency, which can be enormous, folks, until the first time he is defeated. So immediately, my first thought is, oh man, you want C, who is a Sith ally, to be loaded up with health. This would be great for him. But who is almost always paired with C, folks? Watt. And if you have Watt on the team, the entire Omicron is negated. So again, it's kind of a thing where it's a very good Omicron, similar to Mace's Omicron, but situationally speaking, because of who Sidious tends to be paired up with, which is most commonly C, it totally neuters the Omicron. Can you use it? Absolutely. If you have got him in a team full of Sith, and it's only Sith, for instance, if you're with Traya, if you're a Traya team, for instance, this can be very beneficial. It can actually be very, very good. Is it going to change what the Traya team is capable of doing? No, not really. It's just going to make them tankier, and it's going to make Sidious a little bit more dangerous. So again, good Omicron. Situationally speaking, though, it's very neutered, and it's not necessarily game-changing. Embo. Embo has a deceptively good Omicron here, folks. It says bounty hunter allies gain plus 40% max protection. At the end of Embo's turn, bounty hunter allies recover protection equal to 25% of Embo's max protection. Doubled for Embo. So in other words, everyone and their uncle is getting a ton of protection, and they're recovering a ton of protection. While Embo has protection, bounty hunter allies gain plus 30% defense and 5% turn meter when a bounty hunter ally receives damage while debuffed. This is deceptively good, folks, and it is a unique. So you can pair this up with, for instance, a Bosk leadership, and suddenly that bounty hunter team becomes extremely thick, extremely hard to kill. Embo becomes very, very, very dangerous and deadly, and you're gaining turn meter on top of it whenever you're getting damaged while debuffed. So it really, really helps to take the team to another level. Does it allow this team to punch up another tier? No. Not really, not in my opinion. It just makes this team much, much more difficult, or whatever team he might be paired with much, much more difficult to deal with. Because of that, I would put this kind of in the B tier here. It's not game-changing, it's not world-changing, it's certainly not a top 5 in my opinion, but it's not bad. It is better, in my opinion, than Mace and Sidious, simply because it does work situationally speaking, unlike theirs. It's not as good as theirs, technically speaking, but it is situationally effective and can be useful. Hera. Hera. Okay. Phoenix allies have. We can just stop right there. That's all you need to know. Until the Phoenix are actually really good and can do something, we're done. It's a prime example, again, folks, of how a good Omicron could be very good, but situationally speaking, it's not. It falls into the same category as Mace and Sidious. Very, very strong Omicron. Will not work, will not be effective because of situation. Okay, Jawa. Specifically Chief Nibbit. When a Jawa ally deals damage to an enemy, they dispel all buffs on that enemy. For every buff dispelled, that enemy is inflicted with a thermal detonator for 2 turns, which can't be dispelled, prevented, or resisted. That's fun. When an enemy... It gets better. When an enemy takes damage from a thermal detonator, Jawa allies recover 5% health and protection, gain 5% turn meter, and there is a 50% chance that enemy is inflicted with a thermal detonator for 2 turns, which can't be dispelled, prevented, or resisted. This is potentially one of the most fun Omicrons that you can get, folks. It takes the Jawas and takes them from being zeros to being heroes. Now, the caveat with this is it's kind of like the Phoenix with Hera. You've got to have a pretty strong Jawa squad. If you've got a bunch of Gear 11 Jawas like me, it's not really going to be that effective. It's not going to make a difference having this Omicron on there. Now, if you have, you know, all Relic 5 Jawas, that's a different story. Suddenly, this is a great Omicron. Because of that, this is I would put this in the A tier, folks. It is situational, dependent on your roster. But if you have the roster, it's a great Omicron. Is it top 5 for me? Probably not. It's probably like right below the cusp with the top 5. Simply because they're not going to suddenly go out and beat like a Darth Revan team. They are going to be extremely difficult to kill, similar to the Embo Omicron. But this is more effective than the Embo Omicron, in my opinion. Just the difference is the squad's not quite as good. Okay, Juhani. Juhani is kind of a mixed bag here, folks. So she is situationally dependent in terms of whether she is good or not. But she also can be good without the situation. It's kind of a 2-tier thing. So it says, at the start of battle, Juhani taunts for 2 turns. Then Juhani, a random dark side unaligned force user, ally, excluding Empire, First Order, Galactic Legends, and a random light side ally force, blah, 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 gain redeemed until Juhani is defeated, which can't be copied, dispelled, or prevented. So here's what this breaks down to, folks. Do you have her on a Star Killer lineup? If you do, this is a top 5 TW Omicron. If you don't, and she's just with like the Old Republic, for instance, not very good. Specifically, if you've got her on like an all Jedi squad, forget it. Not happening. With Old Republic, it is not as bad, but with Jedi, forget it. So this is, again, it's situational here with this one, folks. It's a very good Omicron, but it is very situationally based. Think along the lines of, I would say Embo. Embo's is good depending on what team you've got him with. But his can be very good. Juhani's same thing. If you've got her paired with Starkiller, very, very, very good. It is not neutered like Sidious or Mace, though, so luckily. Unless you've got them with the wrong team, of course. So, again, we've kind of had our A tiers, you know, with the Mara Jade, with the Ahsoka Tano, Phasma. Kind of what I would describe as our B tiers, which would be like Juhani. You could argue that Embo, Scion of Jango, and Chief Nibbit fall into that category. Scion of Jango is real borderline there. And then you've kind of got your next tier, which is your Mace, your Sidious, your Hera. Teams that just, you know, or Omicrons that just aren't good because of situations. Okay, our final 3 here. Kind of the same situation. We're going to have some very hit or miss with this. So the Grand Inquisitor, his Omicron is, let's just say it how it is, folks. You might as well consider it, because everyone and their uncle is going to have to get the Inquisitors one way or the other. CG is just forcing it down our throats. It's going to have to happen. So you've got to at least consider it. Whether you like them or not, I hate them. I don't want anything to do with them, but it's going to have to happen eventually just because of what CG is doing. So let's at least consider it. While Grand Inquisitor is active, whenever an enemy loses Purge, they regain it at the end of the turn. That's pretty big. On their turn, Inquisitorious allies can ignore Taunt to target an enemy with 6 stacks of Purge. That's huge. Even though we hate them, we want nothing to do with them, this is actually a really good Omicron, and it makes the Inquisitors go from being a decent squad to being an amazing squad. I shouldn't say amazing. Riva makes them amazing. This makes them a good squad. Average to good is what the better comparison probably would be. This Omicron itself, is it worthwhile? Maybe. Depends on whether you have Inquisitors or not, obviously. If you do, it's probably not bad. But here's the thing, folks. If you're going to get Riva, and you're going to push for Riva, I would not invest in this at this point. I would save, wait till you get Riva, try Riva out first, see if her leadership is going to work better in TW. If not, then maybe consider adding it. But for me, the jury is still out on this one at this point, simply because we don't know enough about Riva yet and how she's going to interact with the team and things like that. So I think this is a good Omicron, but the jury is still out. Okay, Jhin. Jhin, and we'll get into it. Let's read it. Rogue One allies gain 30% max health and potency and 20 speed. Whenever a Rogue One ally's buff expires during an enemy's turn, Jhin gains 10% turn meter. If all allies are Rogue One at the start of battle, whenever Jhin critically hits an enemy, all allies recover 10% health and gain an additional bonus depending on their role. And then we can see all of the rolls here. So this all comes back down to two keywords, Rogue One. Similar to Phoenix. Here's the problem with this Omicron, folks. Phoenix, we know, can't do anything. They're useless. Rogue One is not useless, though. Rogue One has been bumped up and is a useful faction now because of A, Profundity, and B, because of Adrad and the team that we're seeing very frequently under his leadership. Since this is her unique, this does help significantly with the Rogue One squadron. So, is it amazing? I would say no, simply because we don't have an exclusive Rogue One squadron. Is it good? Yes. It definitely will help your squad. It will make you beefier. It will make you tougher to kill. Think along the lines of Embo. Did it revolutionize Embo under a bounty hunter team? No. Did it make them better and more difficult to beat? Yes. Similar situation here with Jhin. This is kind of a still jury is out on, simply because we could see more Rogue One tweaks and benefits and things like that in the future. But even right now, it's still effective. It's still not bad. All right, T3M4. I'm not even sure which unique it's on. I guessed right. This is, in my opinion, pretty much not worth getting, folks. At the start of the encounter, T3M4 gains stealth for 2 turns. Droid allies gain 15 armor pen, max health, 20% defense for each target lock, blah, 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 blah. At this point in the game, this is not very good, because it is very droid specific. Here's why I say at this point of the game. Now, I am recording this, folks, right as Aphra has dropped. This might change with Aphra coming out. As Aphra gets out into the wild and people start messing around with her, and we start to see more of these droid lineups coming into play, suddenly this could become a very, very, very good Omicron. Right now, not good. You can kind of see the pattern that we've got here, folks. Our bottom 3 are kind of, the jury is still out, because we're waiting for either A, something to come out, B, something to get fully tested, or C, are they going to release more content with it? The top 10 are all pretty much well known. We all know about them. There's no Phoenix coming. That isn't happening, folks. But we have very hit or miss throughout this. Again, we kind of have our A tier with Mara Jade, our S tier with Ahsoka, A tier again with Captain Phasma. Those are really the only 3 folks that realistically I would recommend that you look into at this point in time. Maybe Grand Inquisitor in the near future. But really, those are the 3 that I would consider. Outside of that, you're really just kind of getting into B tier. Now, if you've got the team, you know, if you've got this ridiculous, amazing bounty hunter team or a Jabba the Hutt team, and you want to use Embo under Jabba the Hutt, that is certainly a good Omicron. It just really depends on your roster, everybody, and how you're using the characters. So it's a little different than GAC, where it's a little more black and white, in my opinion. We've got a lot more gray territory here. So there you have it. All right, everybody, if you liked what you saw today, I'd appreciate it if you guys gave me a thumbs up. Also, if you want to catch more content that we've got coming out, make sure you guys subscribe and turn on notifications down below. Last but not least, if you would like to join the live chat over on Discord or join the live GAC matches on Twitch, you can check out both of those links in the video description below. All right, everybody. Catch you next time.